The night Ava found out, she did not scream. She stood in the doorway of their midtown penthouse, still in her coat, still holding the keys she had just used to let herself in. The room was lit by the lamps she had chosen, warm amber glow, because Damon always said he liked coming home to warmth. Damon was on the couch. The woman beside him had her head on his shoulder, laughing softly. It was the laugh of someone who had stopped worrying about being caught. Damon looked up. His body went stiff. His face rearranged itself into irritation rather than apology. Ava looked at them both for exactly 4 seconds. She counted. She had always been precise about measuring things. Then she set her keys carefully on the entry table. Not a slam. Not a drop. A placement. She walked to the bedroom and closed the door softly. The silence she left behind was not the silence of a woman with nothing to say. It was the silence of a woman who had decided there was no one left worth saying it to. She had known for 31 days. She had simply been waiting to be ready. And now she was. 3 weeks earlier, Ava had been in the kitchen of Damon's second apartment when she heard his voice carrying down the hall. She had forgotten her laptop. She still had the key. She had not meant to listen. But the words found her anyway. Ava. Damon was laughing. She heard the ice in his glass, the easy roll of his confidence. She handles things quietly in the background. Support, you know? She's good at the small stuff. Formatting. Logistics. She wouldn't understand the bigger picture. Someone chuckled. She ever push back? Push back. He laughed harder. She doesn't know what to push against. Ava stood still in the hallway. She had written the predictive allocation framework running his entire platform. She had corrected his Series B term sheet at midnight and saved him from a clause that would have cost him controlling interest. She had built the learning model his team presented at the industry conference, the one that landed him on 3 magazine covers. He had called it his breakthrough. He had never once used her name. She retrieved her laptop. She walked back past the living room. Damon glanced over and smiled, relaxed, unbothered. She smiled back briefly. That smile was the moment the decision became final. Ava had warm brown skin that caught light the way still water does, quietly and completely. Her mother always said she was born looking like she already knew something you didn't. Growing up in Lagos, she had been the girl who fixed things. Not loudly. Not for credit. She fixed them because broken things bothered her and because her hands knew how to work. Her father was an engineer. Her mother was a mathematician. Ava inherited both gifts and learned early that the world rarely applauds those who make things run. It applauds those who stand at the front. She had understood that. She had believed she could live with it. She had been wrong. 3 years ago, when Damon launched Novatech Capital, Ava had genuinely believed in him. She had been proud to pour her intelligence into something growing. She had not understood then what she understood now. She had not been building alongside him. She had been building underneath him. Invisible, load-bearing, completely unacknowledged. She lay in the dark that night and listened to him sleep, easy and untroubled. She thought about the algorithm, the one no one else understood. Then she opened her phone and sent a single message to a contact labeled only JS. It read, "I'm ready." The reply came back within a minute. Then it begins. Ava had first encountered Jason through her own work, not through any introduction Damon arranged. 18 months ago, a contract she quietly saved from collapsing caught attention in rooms Damon had never accessed. Word moved carefully in those circles. Ava had not known she was being noticed. Then 6 months ago, a meeting appeared in her calendar. Not a request. Not an invitation. A confirmed slot with a building address and a time. She went because she was curious and because she trusted her instincts. Jason was sitting at a table in a private room on the 40th floor of a building with no name at street level. He was calm the way powerful men are calm, not because nothing worried him, but because he had stopped performing otherwise. He placed a folder on the table between them. "I've been reviewing your work," he said. Not his. Yours. She didn't ask how he knew. That would have been foolish, and Ava was not foolish. "What specifically?" she said. He opened the folder. Inside, printouts of 3 frameworks, annotated in red ink. Nobody had ever printed her work before. Nobody had held it like it mattered. She sat down. She listened very carefully. 2 weeks after that meeting, Ava began the process of leaving. Not the marriage that would come last. She was methodical. She was precise. A door should not be opened until you're certain of what is on the other side. She opened a private account structure through a holding firm registered in her mother's maiden name. She transferred all original drafts, code repositories, and timestamp version histories that proved exactly whose mind had built what. She had kept copies for years, not out of suspicion, but habit. Architects keep their drawings. She also began building something entirely new. Jason's organization had provided what they promised: a facility, a team of 12 engineers, and a budget that did not require her to apologize for her ambitions. She named the new company Amara Systems. Amara was her grandmother's name. It meant grace. She worked from 5 in the morning until 9, before Damon woke. She cooked his breakfast. She answered his questions about contracts he didn't fully understand. She smiled at appropriate moments. Every night, she updated her files and thought about the ring on her finger. The ring was beautiful. It had always been beautiful. It had never been enough. On a Tuesday evening, Damon canceled their anniversary dinner by text at 6:51 p.m. 3 laughing emojis. Ava read the message standing in her closet, already dressed in the green silk gown she had pressed herself. She looked at the emojis for a long moment. Not in anger. She had moved past anger weeks ago. She looked at them the way you look at the last line of a long book, the line that makes everything before it makes sense. She put her phone down. She picked up the bag she had already packed. Not a suitcase. One bag, the kind you carry when you are not running, when you have chosen. She went to Damon's study. She removed the envelope from his desk drawer. Divorce papers inside, signed in her careful handwriting on every required line. She set them in the exact center of his desk. Then she removed her ring. She held it once, 5 years in a small bright circle, and placed it in the center of the papers. She aligned it carefully. This felt like authorship. She picked up her bag and walked out. The rain was cold and immediate. She stood at the base of the driveway and breathed slowly for the first time in months. Then the headlights appeared. There were 4 vehicles. 4 black cars moving in perfect formation through the wet street, quiet and deliberate. They slowed and stopped in front of her with the authority of things that do not rush because they have never needed to. The rear door of the center vehicle opened. He stepped out without an umbrella for himself. He walked directly to her and extended one over her head in a single smooth motion. His jet black hair was swept cleanly back. His jaw was precise and calm. Along the left side of his neck and disappearing beneath his collar, a tattoo curved like dark calligraphy, intricate and deliberate, flowing with the line of his jaw, a pattern that seemed almost alive in the rain-blue light. His dark eyes found her face. He did not speak immediately. He looked at her the way she had quietly wanted to be looked at her entire life. Not with hunger. Not with possession. With recognition. The expression of someone who already knows who you are and has simply been waiting for you to arrive. "You took longer than I expected," Jason said quietly. "I had things to finish," Ava said. He nodded. "Correct answer." She stepped forward and got into the car. The door closed. The convoy moved silently into the rain. Inside the car, the city moved past like light on water. Jason sat across from her, not beside her. The distance was intentional, the body language of a man who understood that a woman who has walked out of her life needs space, not proximity. "You're wondering when I first noticed," he said. "I know when," Ava replied. "The Brennan contract. 14 months ago." A slight nod. "Your husband walked into that negotiation with 3 structural errors and 1 unenforceable clause. It should have collapsed." The final version was entirely different from the draft. The corrections were elegant, work by someone who understood the law better than every attorney. Ava said nothing. "It wasn't him," Jason said. "No," she agreed. "I had analysts review your work going back 4 years. The predictive allocation model. The Mecklenburg distribution clause that saved him $3 million in tariffs. The learning system his team presented last April." A pause. "All yours. None of it credited to you." Ava looked at him fully. What do you want? Not suspicious. Precise. Build what you built for him, he said, but this time with your name on it. He placed a matte black card on the seat between them. In return, he said quietly, I keep you safe while you make yourself untouchable. The facility looked like nothing from the outside. No signs. No logos. A clean stone building on a quiet street where the air smelled like cold concrete and money. Ava's team was in place when she arrived, 12 engineers, 3 legal strategists, 2 data architects. They stood when she walked in. She had never had a room stand for her before. Amara Systems, she said, setting her bag down. We start today. They started that day. Ava worked the way she always had, early, precisely, quietly. But something was different. She felt it in her chest like a new gear catching. When she wrote her name on the work, the name stayed. When she corrected something, the correction was acknowledged. Her team listened and asked intelligent questions. She built the next generation of the framework she had built once before, not to destroy what she had left behind, but because it was hers, and it had always deserved better than hiding. Within the first month, Amara Systems filed 3 patent applications, registered under her name. She stood at her office window the afternoon the confirmation arrived and looked at the city below. She had helped shape this skyline from behind glass carrying someone else's name. Now the glass was hers. She thought briefly about Damon. Then she stopped. Damon found the ring on a Wednesday morning. He woke at 7:40, moved through the penthouse in his robe, went to the study for a charger. He stopped at the desk, looked at the papers, looked at the ring sitting in the center, catching morning light like a small, precise accusation. He picked it up. He turned it over in his fingers. Then he laughed. A genuine laugh. The laugh of a man who doesn't believe what he is seeing, because he has told himself so long that this could not happen that his mind now refuses to process it as real. He walked to the bedroom doorway. His girlfriend stirred in the sheets. She actually left, Damon said. He sounded almost amused. Give her 3 days, he added, tossing the ring onto the nightstand like a grocery receipt. She'll be back. He put the divorce papers in his desk drawer without reading them. He was on his phone before he reached the kitchen, already cataloging his morning. The 9 o'clock call, the board lunch, Davis at 3. He had no idea what he had dismissed. He had spent 3 years not paying attention. Ava had not left into nothing. She had left into something already waiting for her. And that something was already moving. The first sign appeared in March. Novateca's core platform system, the predictive allocation model running beneath everything like a heartbeat, began throwing errors no one could explain. Small ones. The kind that appear at the edge of your vision and vanish before you look directly at them. Damon's lead developer, Marcus, ran diagnostics for 6 hours and came back with nothing. The system is doing something we didn't program, Marcus said, laptop open in Damon's office. It's like it learned behaviors no one authorized. Then fix it, Damon said. To fix something, you need to understand how it was built. Damon held his gaze. You built it. Marcus shifted. We maintained it. But the original architecture, it's layered in ways we've never fully mapped. Find someone who understands it, Damon said, dismissing the meeting with a wave. In the elevator down, Marcus sent a message to 3 colleagues. Does anyone actually understand the core model? Not the surface layer. The real foundation. No one replied yes. No one had ever been taught the foundation. Because the person who built it had built it in her own mind, in her own language, and had never been asked to document it. Because Damon had never once imagined she would not always be there. By April, the errors had spread. The distribution clause on 2 of Novateca's anchor contracts had lapsed, quietly, without fanfare, the way important things expire when no one who understands them is paying attention. The renewal required a specific compliance addendum, a detail living in a corner of the agreement no one had been told to watch. No one had been told because Ava had always watched it, silently, without being asked, without being credited. In the boardroom on the 44th floor, Damon stood at the head of the table and learned the sole distribution contract, worth $11 million annually, had lapsed. Why wasn't it filed? Controlled panic, wearing the costume of authority. His junior attorney did not look up. The renewal clause required a compliance addendum filed 30 days prior. It wasn't filed. Silence moved around the table. Davis sat to Damon's left with the expression of a man calculating his distance from the exit. It was always handled internally, he said carefully. Before what? Damon said. Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. Every face around the table wore the same expression, the careful look of people standing on ground they suddenly realized they never examined. Ground that had been held in place by someone who was no longer there. The investors went quiet in May. Money goes quiet the way water drains gradually, then all at once. Phone calls returned 2 days late. Meetings rescheduled. One anchor investor, who once called Damon the most decisive mind in the room, sent his assistant without explanation. The tech division was bleeding too. The platform's learning system, the one his spring keynote described as built from the ground up by our visionary leadership team, was degrading in ways that baffled his entire staff. Outside consultants were brought in. Their report said essentially what Marcus had said, but with formal language and a larger invoice. The system had been maintained by a single intelligence for its entire operational life. That intelligence was no longer present. What does that mean? Damon asked. It means whoever built this understood it in ways never documented. Without them, we are effectively guessing. Damon placed the report face down on his desk. He sat looking at the city through his floor-to-ceiling windows. He had always loved those windows. They had felt like command. Now they felt like something else, less like power and more like exposure. A man standing on ground he now understood was not his own. In June, Damon said the 2 words out loud. He was in the boardroom. Thursday morning. Davis to his left. 3 executives around the table wore expressions of people watching something fail and waiting for permission to name it. Find her, Damon said. Stripped of performance. Just those 2 words. Davis looked up sharply. Ava, Damon said. I want her found. Hire whoever you need. He told himself this was a business decision. He would offer professional terms, a consulting arrangement, structured and fair. He was not going to beg. He repeated this firmly on Thursday, again Friday morning, and again in the car on Saturday night. The investigators were skilled and expensive. They took 11 days. The report arrived on a Thursday morning. 1 page. A venue name, a date, and a photograph taken through tinted glass, blurred at the edges, sharp at the center. Ava. At the Obsidian Gala. An annual event with no public calendar, no social presence, and an invitation committee Damon had once tried and failed to access. The most exclusive room in the city. She was already inside it. He stared at the photograph for a long time. Then he told Davis to get him an invitation. He was going to offer terms. Professional. Clean. He was not going to beg. Davis told him it was invitation only. The committee was extremely selective. I don't care about the committee, Damon said. Get me in. Davis called in a favor that would not be comfortable to repay. The invitation arrived Friday afternoon for lines on matte black cardstock. An address and a time. Damon held it and felt the forward lean of a man who has located the source of the problem and is moving toward it, certain his arrival is itself a solution. He had been telling himself the right story about Ava for so long he did not notice it was wrong. She had found someone. That was the only explanation his mind could construct. Someone powerful, offering her access in exchange for her company. He could not build the alternative version, because the version of Ava living in his memory was still the one he had constructed, brilliant, but defined by proximity to his platform. Contingent on his name. He had not updated the file. He was working from a picture that had never been accurate. He pressed his suit Saturday morning. He straightened his tie in the darkened car window on the way, feeling like a man arriving to reclaim what was his. He had never been more wrong about anything in his entire life. The Obsidian Gala occupied the entire upper floor of a building that did not advertise itself. No red carpet. No photographers. The invitation gave you an address and a time. After that, it assumed you understood how to conduct yourself in a room that had nothing left to prove. Damon noticed the quality of the silence immediately. Not the silence of emptiness, the silence of fullness. 200 people in low conversation, carrying the ease of those who had stopped needing to impress anyone. He adjusted his jacket. He scanned the room, reading who spoke to whom, locating the centers of gravity. He was good at this. It took him 90 seconds to find her. She stood near the northeastern windows, the skyline blazing behind her. The black gown was architectural, made for her body specifically. Her shoulders were bare. At her throat, diamonds caught the light, not ostentatious, simply belonging. She was laughing, real, unguarded, head tilting slightly. For people stood around her in the configuration of those receiving something they find valuable and do not want to miss. Damon felt something cold move through him. He identified it after 3 seconds. He had been outpaced. His ego absorbed it. He straightened his collar and moved toward her. The group around Ava registered his approach before she did. He watched the subtle shift, a collective recalibration, the micro-adjustment of people who have detected something entering their space that does not belong. Ava turned half a second after them. She looked at him. Her expression did not change. He had expected surprise, discomfort. He had expected to matter to her face. Instead, he saw the thing he had not prepared for. She looked at him the way you look at a problem you resolved months ago and have not thought about since.
"Damon," she said.
Even. Precise. "We need to talk." Too loud for the room. Nearby conversations paused. He reached out and closed his hand around her arm. She looked down at his grip. She did not pull away. She studied it with the unhurried calm of a woman who is no longer afraid of anything this man can do. Then she raised her eyes to his face.
He saw it then.
She was not angry, not sad. She looked at him with pity, not for herself, but for him. The pity of someone watching a person realize, too late, that they have made a fundamental miscalculation. "Let go of my arm," she said quietly, "and go home. You don't get to just walk away." His voice climbed. "You walked out on a marriage, on a company I built. A company she built on her work." The voice was quiet, from his left. He could not identify who had spoken because the room had already shifted, bodies drawing back without appearing to move. The string quartet stopped, not at a phrase's end. Mid-note. Total. Immediate. Silence moved outward like a pressure wave until 200 people stood completely still. Every glass lowered. All attention on a single point. The point was behind Damon. He turned around. Jason had not rushed. That was the detail everyone would remember. Not what he said, but that he had simply been somewhere else and then been here, as if the room had contracted around his intention. He stood 2 feet behind Damon in his charcoal suit, hands at his sides. Along the left side of his neck, the tattoo moved with the line of his jaw, dark ink and flowing, deliberate curves, intricate as calligraphy, certain as a signature. In the candlelight, it seemed almost alive. His face was entirely composed. The face of a man who has never needed to raise his voice because every room he enters already knows what he is. "Take your hand off my wife," Jason said. Not loud. Every person in the room heard. "Before I remove your arm from your body." Not a threat in anger. A scheduled outcome that could, at this moment, still be avoided. Everyone understood the distinction. So did Damon. His hand dropped. Not a decision. His hand simply opened, operated by something more immediate than choice. Jason reached into his jacket and removed his phone. He turned the screen toward Damon. A document. Pages of it, dense with figures and legal language. The sole distribution contract, acquired at default 6 weeks ago. He scrolled. The Mecklenburg secondary debt, purchased through a holding company in February.
He scrolled again.
The operational credit line your CFO refinanced in March, the one he said was restructured with a new lender. A pause. "That lender is me." Damon stared. Jason produced a second document, physical, folded, prepared well in advance. One of his people placed it in Damon's hand. "Formal notice of debt acceleration. Effective immediately. Your legal team will have the filings before midnight. Novatech Capital is finished. You have the weekend to inform your board." The document slipped from Damon's trembling fingers and fell to the marble floor. Damon stared at the papers. then at Jason, then at Ava. His legs gave out. He went to his knees on the marble floor. Ava, he said.
Please.
The algorithms, you built them. Tell him to stop. Please. She looked down at him. Her face was still. Not cold. Not triumphant. Still, because what is beneath it is finally at rest. I left my ring on your desk 6 months ago, she said. You should have read what was underneath it. Jason nodded once. His people escorted Damon out, his voice fading behind the doors. The string quartet began again, one violin, finding the phrase abandoned mid-note, picking it up without apology. Jason took Ava's hand and turned to the room. The founder of Amara Systems, he said. The architect behind every success this industry gave to someone else. It is past time this city knew her name. He brought her hand to his lips. The room applauded, not for a performance, but for a reckoning. Ava stood in the light of the city she had helped build, beside a man who learned the shape of her intelligence before he spoke her name. She smiled. It reached her eyes. That hallway smile had been a door closing. This was everything waiting on the other side.
Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and share. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.